Business Pro Tips happens every Monday and Wednesday. I want to thank you guys for coming back to another day. If you never liked, subscribe, followed our channel before, definitely want to tell you to hit that bell icon. That way you can get the latest content when we post it. Guys, I can tell you I had a very good day. I had the opportunity to go out into the marketplace, meet new people. And I just want to point out this. Today's show is going to be about the resistance, your brain. Now, it's going to be a little different because normally, as I do the show, this is a business pro tip that incorporated into your business life. And it actually helps. I mean, a lot of us who are not in business right now, we actually are doing things as a consumer. And when we do things as a consumer, we're training ourselves in a pattern. So you'll find this to be interesting, but I want to incorporate this information so that you can actually use it in a way that you can maximize profitability for your business. Keep in mind, we're in October. You always got to look at it what the worldview is. And I tell you, you need to get the proper worldview when you first wake up. I know that it's not that easy currently with the media, the way it stands. The media is putting out information at times that's contrary. Look at the media currently when it comes to any form of GDP or business as the weather person. Now, you got to remember, the weather comes on and they can tell it's going to rain at 12 o'clock and come to find out it doesn't. It'll tell you it rain all day. Come up, it doesn't. They can tell you that it's not going to rain, and it does. So we need to take that opportunity to kind of look at the same thing about the business economy. Now, the reason that I said the video today is about your brain because that's what we need to work on. Most of the time, we confuse our brain with our ego because our ego is part of our center of our emotions. But I want to point out a couple of things for you, okay? When it comes to our brains, we're hungry, we're scared, we're angry, and most importantly, when it comes to our brain, which we confuse, again, for our emotions, we're horny. Now, that may seem contrary to most people. They may not want to say it, but these are the things. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be scared. You're going to hungry, scared, angry, and horny. That is actually your mind. People will say your brain. But with that being said, then how do we separate these feelings and be able to still do business in an economic way that we generate profit? Today is Monday, the first day for us of the month. Now, we know that the first literally was on Sunday, which was yesterday. But from the perspective as far as going out, and I made an agreement and it finally came down to it that on Sunday I won't do any work. Now, it's been years since I was able to do that. There was always something I was doing that was relative to work, whether paperwork, but I decided I'm not going to. I made that commitment. So I'm going to see how many days can I go with that commitment that I've made to my household. And in the process of that, it's going to be difficult because I always see something I can do for business. But with that being said, let's go into this because we have to be able to have resistance against these four categories that are in the center of our thought process. A lot of times we reference it to be the brain, but it's really the seat of our emotions. And that is hungry, scared, angry, and horny. How do you deal with that in business when you're functioning in business and you need to generate profit and you may be on the scared standpoint? You got to make that phone call, got to meet that new customer. You have to call a person who didn't pay and collect dollars and cents, pounds and pence. And you're getting uncomfortable, you're getting nervous. Well, let's look at it. Now, naturally, our emotions and our bodies want to eat. So we need to know that that's normal. This is a normal thing. Remember, we're talking about being hungry as the first one. Our bodies naturally want to eat. It wants to consume. It wants to be satisfied, whether it's a craving that comes from sugar, salt, and fat, or whether it's the realization that I haven't eaten, or maybe you dehydrated and you don't know that dehydration, the way you're feeling hungry after you just finished eating, is the same feeling that you have when you're hungry. Dehydration and hunger, same feeling. Feel like you didn't get anything, especially if you eat. This is how people overeat when they really dehydrated. So one of the tools I'll tell you on Business Pro Tip Monday is to make sure you put a little pinch of Himalaya salt in your water because you need minerals to absorb it. Now, if you don't, you're just drinking tap water, which was maybe chlorified from the city, or maybe you bought bottled water. Drop a little pinch of minerals in there, some Himalaya salt. It would definitely help you out with those 98 trace minerals for you to absorb the water versus let it pass through to you. A lot of people go to the bathroom, they drink water. So that's one of our business pro tips on being healthy on Monday. Now, again, we talked about being hungry. Also, here's another thing. Remember, I said you also get angry. Do you realize that our emotions love a good vendetta? That's exactly correct. It loves to be angry because it loves to have our own way. We love it most of all. This is our emotions here. Well, you got to be able to overcome hunger. Then you got to, once you're able to overcome hunger, then you got to deal with the fact of being angry. That's right, angry. It's a fundamental situation that we fall into. For today, what time you eat lunch? Think about it. When you ate lunch, was you munching throughout the day at work? Was you just waking up because you worked the second shift, or you worked the third shift and you just waking up today? Now is your breakfast time. Well, when you get angry, there's a lot of different things you need to think about because you got to be self-regulated. Most of us are now self-regulated. We're responsive. In order to be a good executive, a good CEO, a good investor, a good person that's good with children, and a lot of us like to admit that we're not really good with kids. I can tell you that I have them, so I'm okay because I still have anger issues. What is that coming from? Well, these are things we normally have prior to getting in business, but we still need to overcome it and be also self-generating, self-stimulating, and also in self-control. We got to have it. There's no doubt about it. Here's another thing. We got to be mindful that when we're angry, that we like a good vendetta, and we also enjoy fighting. When was the last time you had an argument? I had another one today. I'm gonna be honest with you. I had another one today. We call it in our household. We call it around the office. We didn't have an argument. You know, that's what we'll say. We didn't have an argument. You know, what we had is a heated conversation. Same thing. That's what we call it, heated conversation. We call those conversations when it's two opposing views and no view gets accepted. Like I'm pushing mine, you pushing more, pushing yours. I had a heated conversation today. That's exactly right. Now, that heated conversation could throw your entire day off. It didn't throw mine off, but I've had days where my heated conversation threw it off. So when you're looking at hunger, when you're looking at anger, when you're also looking at fighting, that's right. I mean, that fight or flight syndrome, some of you out there, like myself, I went through both stages. I used to be a person that when I got into a disagreement or it was a heated conversation, I was a flyer. Pew, I'm out of here. I would walk away. You know, I don't want to talk about no more. That was my way of saying I'm out because this is not getting anywhere. But I also learned that if you don't stand your ground and have a good heated conversation, that the person can walk behind you and still have that conversation. They can walk behind you till you get in your car, and it may hit your glass. I'm not saying I had those situations where nobody hit my glass. All I'm saying is I know how to walk away, and I know how to make somebody. Well, I didn't make them, but they did follow me, and it was kind of weird. I felt like I was being stopped by a conversation arguer, but it wasn't like that. It was just my family member that I actually said something I shouldn't have said down underneath their skin, like a bean or a rock inside of a can. It was tinging, and they weren't gonna let me get away with that. How come that's important? Because these are all the things we had prior to us being in business, or we may even have in business. On today's Monday Business Pro Tips, we got to accept that we cannot carry that behavior. In between two subject matters, I had a good conversation this weekend with a group of executives. And in that conversation with a group of executives, we talked about getting lost in the middle of conversation. Now, you may say, what am I talking about? All right. So always write on a sheet of paper problem. And on the bottom, write solution. Then in the middle of that, if you just take your hand and say problem, solution, put solution here, problem here. In the middle is a conversation. And you know what happens in the middle? A lot of times problems don't get solved because there's something lost in the translation, which means I made a point. You have to get to the point of your life to remove the word point. Instead of making points, ask that question. On Business Pro Tip Monday, here's the question we want to ask. We have to be resilient. And we know we have a problem and we know it's the solution, and we're the two that have to do it. So that means that either on this side, there's two brackets, and it's not the double NCA. These are two brackets though. Here you got problem. Here you have comfort. Here you have solution. Here you have responsibilities. In the middle of these two, you're going to have an issue called lost in conversation. The overall goal is to solve a problem with responsibility. Problem, responsibility, comfort, and on the bottom, solution. You cannot have a solution if you're going to use comfort. What you can have is ignoring the problem. And on Business Pro Tip Monday, you want to be able to say, I know there's a problem. Here's a solution. And the solution, conversation. If you're the only one that have to make the decision, then it's going to be an easy way to find a solution. But most of the time, if you're running a company or leading over a group of individuals at any capacity, maybe you're a manager out there, or maybe you are not a manager, maybe you are an employee, and you always realize that you're being dismissed when you're at work. Let me just explain something to you. We know that there's a problem. There got to be a solution. We know that comfort is the number one killer of solving problems. I want you to hear it from me again. Comfort is the number one killer of solving problems, especially when you know you're dealing with hunger, you're dealing with anger, you're dealing with So it's hunger. I had to take a look for a second. Almost hunger. You're scared. You're angry, and you're horny. When you're dealing with those things, comfort is going to be your number one. You're not going to solve no problems. Matter of fact, you want to get no solutions taken care of. But if you want to take care of solutions, then you're going to have to understand it's never going to be comfortable. I can tell you I haven't been comfortable in a long time because I got problems that need to be solved. And when problems need to be solved, comfort cannot be my best friend. Or I'm going to have things that, just like recently, Congress just passed 45 days. They just kicked the can down. They wanted to be comfort. They didn't do, again, as you say, they passed it in the Senate. They did not do what? They didn't solve the spending bill. They just kicked it down. And when they kicked it down, they did funding for 45 days. Did that solve the problem? Most of you say, well, it's a 5-minute problem. It did. But overall, it really didn't. All it did is allow for 45 days of funding. Put the same group of people that's uncomfortable right now, thinking about they have what we like to call non-essential jobs. And when because they have non-essential jobs, a lot of people are going to be affected if they do the actual shutdown. Now, you may have a job and you may be sitting there scratching your head trying to figure out what is actually going on. Let me just tell you, there's some people who are being comfortable and they're going to argue because they don't want to be responsible. To solve problems, it takes responsibility and a solution. It doesn't take comfort, and it definitely doesn't take, we need to know we got to have a problem to be able to be responsible, to have a solution. There's your category. Problem, automatically. Then you're going to have responsibility. Then you're going to have a solution. That is the order. You need to always ask yourself, problem, responsibility, solution. Problem, responsibility, solution. That's it. You throw comfort in there, and I can assure you, if comfort's at the top on this here, and actually on the bottom here, you got responsibility. 99% of people choose to be comfortable. And I'm going to tell you one thing about being comfortable. It's an illusion, because somebody in the room realizes that the problem didn't get solved. And most of the time, it may take you 45 days, just like they're going to do in Congress. But I can assure you, and I put my 5 fingers on it. Let me put up one more, because somebody might say, that's a thumb. I put my 5 fingers on it, that all you're going to do is postpone the solution. And that's not what we want to do on Business Pro Tip Monday. The goal today is to find problems, be responsible, and give a solution, which means you implement the solution and get it done. Now, as I told you before, everybody likes a good fight. Everybody likes a good vendetta. Everybody likes to point out the fact that when somebody else did not complete something, because we got to make points. Well, how do you do it when you're extremely lazy? Let me give you an example. Sometimes we can act like a squirrel. A squirrel likes to go get nuts, hold them in the mouth, no innuendo, bury them. And in the process of burying them, they worried about foxes, they worried about eagles, they worried about hawks, they worried about other birds, they worried about other squirrels seeing what they done. And then what ends up happening? They plant trees and forget where they put the nuts at. Other times they can go back later and get the nuts, but most of the time they forget where they put the nuts at, and that's how you can build a whole forest. Well, let me just explain something to you. None of us should be, squirrels do what they do because that's their mindset. This is their natural instinct. Well, our natural instinct is to be hungry, to be scared, to be angry, and to be horny. You have to solve that problem and not act like a squirrel. If you're acting like a squirrel and you're in business right now, I'm going to assure you, if you're a man, you're going to make whoever you're dating uncomfortable. And if you're a woman, the man, he may be like, but he's not happy about all of this. And the reason this happened is because in order to be a great leader, we have to first look for problems which are normal. I was talking to, today I had the opportunity to go out to Bellevue. When I was out in Bellevue, had a great conversation with Suzanne over at Martial Arts International. Had a great competition. She's the marketing manager over there. If you don't have a chance, you have a child, you want to make sure that if you have a child that wants to be disciplined, then you want to go out and you want to put them in a program so they can build confidence. Some of the most greatest people in America have taken place in sports. And if you have a child that needs discipline and confidence, then when they walk around, they bow their head, and you want them to hold their head up and you want to say, yes, Mr. or Mrs. or no, ma'am, no, ma'am. If you want to give that, then you definitely want to check out Martial Arts International out in Bellevue. You definitely want to do that. Now, they didn't pay me to make that statement, but I was out speaking with their marketing manager there. Her name is Suzanne. And in the process of meeting with Suzanne, I sat down and we had a good conversation about leadership. And I enjoyed, because she's a leader. And when you're in a situation when you're dealing with a leader and they're dealing with, the thing is, The golden nuggets of business or problems, the golden nugget in a relationship. I love it when younger women saying that all the guys are immature. What she's basically saying is they're not problem solvers. When a male says, "Oh, this woman's a pain in my butt," what he's basically saying is she's not a problem solver. They can create problems, but they're horrible at solving problems. Here's my question to you: do you like being responsible and then having solutions? Which means, recently I was asked, I asked a question, not I asked a question. Quick story. I said, "Hey, do you want to ride together or you want to go separate? It's your choice." I got in the car and I left. Did you catch what I just said? My question was, do you want to ride together where we're going, or do you want to drive separately? He said, "Well, you decide." I decided. Now I'm going to tell you, I saw a problem. I got responsible and I got to a place I needed to get to on time. The person came after me. But what did I decide to do? Get in the car and move away. See, that's a problem solver. It doesn't mean necessarily that, well, one, I can tell you this. If I dealt with the 4 categories I told you about, our brain, which is the reality of what the situation is, can you defeat? If you want to be successful, if you want to be able to make $50,000 this month, trust me when I make this statement. You don't have to trust me. That's just one of those sayings they say, don't say when you're talking to somebody, trust me, because it sounds like you're trying to market something and you don't really believe in it. So let me just rephrase that sentence and back out of that, because I actually tell people, don't say trust me. When it when it comes down to it, basically what the situation is this: look for problems. It's normal. The person who can actually find a problem, be responsible, implement the solution, becomes the maturest business person in the world, becomes the mature parent. I'm going to tell you that if you are concerned about how you're going to be viewed, you're not a problem solver. What you are is a person who delays solving a problem because you're worrying about how you're going to be viewed. Now, remember, that's an emotional situation. Let me give you something else you can implement. Let's have a dialogue for a moment versus a monologue. I just went on my Saturday Night Live monologue, but let me put a dialogue out there to you. Right now, let's say, for example, that you have to, in the next 10 days, go out from people you don't know. You have exhausted everybody you do know, but you have to go out and meet new people. And when you go out and meet new people, you need to generate 10 grand. You knew you need to make 10 grand 2 days ago. You knew you made 10 grand a whole month ago. You knew you had to make 10 grand 4 months ago. But now you're woken up to no longer kicking the ball down the can like the Senate did. And you decide that you're going to do the one thing. You're going to see the problem, make it a 5-minute problem, be responsible. You're going to put a solution in. What do you do? One, you're going to have to face these 4 items: hunger, being afraid, being angry, and being horny. You know, I was reading an article one time. It says that men, I'm not going to say women, men, when they have to be the most responsible, all of a sudden their sex drive goes through the roof. I can tell you that that doesn't necessarily work for me. When I have to be the most responsible, which means I have to make a decision and I know I'm going to take heat from it, I actually get in the fighting mode. That means that I'm kind of not the right person to be around when I'm in that mode. So it normally mine goes scary to fear. But according to this article, 67% of people, and this actually was part of Forbes magazine, 6% of people, and I believe it was I read this article in 2018, 2019, and it stated that 67% of men, normally before they can go be responsible, they got to deal with their horniness. Well, that may be true, but the question is going to be not that. The question more or less is going to be this, though: how does that solve the problem? It doesn't. It delays it. And one of the aspects of it is most of us don't realize some of our natural default, because these 4 items are what you're going to face every day. This is what you're going to have to do to build resilience. And that's why I'm talking about it. You want to get into the position of growing wealth, you got to deal with how you spending money when it comes to eating, how many times you're eating, how many times at work someone said, let's go out to eat. You can't build wealth if you're always spending it on food. So you got to deal with the hunger issue. Most of us have food in the refrigerator, but we still stop to go get something to eat. Can you really build wealth with that part of it? Because that's your natural trait. Second, fear. I'm going to tell you, none of us like being rejected. I'm standing in a lot of people's presence. I'm not going to say I'm immune from being rejected, but I have definitely got some war marks from being rejected. I got some of the backlash beatings. I got some of that slap in the face. I got some of those, well, give me some more information and I'll get back to you, which really means no. And if you go draft it, I even had somebody say, give me some references. You go, you call some of your clients, you give them references, you give it to them, and then you don't hear from them. So you go make an appointment at their office unannounced, which means you follow up. In the process of following up, because they didn't answer the phone, you realize, oh, we looked at it, we're not interested. You couldn't just call me and tell me that. You couldn't reply to one of the 3 emails I sent you in the last 2 weeks. You couldn't just decide to tell me that when you first met me, but you used what we like to call a diversion and submit to me some references. I've been there. I got the scars, got the stars and the stripes, and it's not the American flag. But for you and I, we need to know to build resilience that these 4 things are normal. And the reason that we need to accept them as normal, because if you avoid them, then you're not going to be able to solve problems. So you must master and start to study yourself. Matter of fact, it may be best if you have a coworker that works with you in your same line of work, or a loved one that lives with you, to say, listen, when it comes time to a problem, what have you noticed me do? Do I go eat? Let me get something to eat real quick. Second, do I get afraid? Like, what if this goes wrong? Well, what if that doesn't work? Do I get afraid? Do I go into fight mode, which I start going to attack? Remember what you did to me in the past? Oh, you're the one that got me in this situation because if you didn't make this decision, do I go into fight mode? Remember, we love a good vendetta. I mean, we hold grudges into the fact there's no such thing as a grudge. It's just straight a mission to destroy a person. And here is the 4th one, horniness. I can tell you, some of the best boxers tell you they depart from their family members when they're getting ready to train because, they don't want to be distracted and they don't want to lose that focus. Because especially when you're dealing with it. Well, let's look at it this way. We have an opportunity to begin to learn more about ourselves on Business Pro Monday, Business Pro Monday. And in the process of that, we need to begin to evaluate, do we struggle with these 4 characteristics? And if we do, then that means that we're going to be more comfortable than a problem solver. Because early I made this statement. I told you, you got comfortability and responsibility. Then you have problem, and then you have solution. In the middle of problem and solution, and then comfortability and responsibility is a conversation. And a lot of times within a conversation, what gets lost in the translation is time. Time. And people love to meet, not implement a solution. People love to talk, but not solve the problem. So we have to do today what other peoples will not do until tomorrow. Now, if you've never liked or subscribed or follow our channel before, if you never had the opportunity to make a statement on Business Pro, I have had a time today about Business Pro Tip Monday. I tell you, I have destroyed it. Maybe my mind is like moving 5,000 miles per hour because I know that once I get off the show, I got something I need to do. And I'm making that mistake by not focusing on you. And I apologize for you. And most people don't. They just keep going as if it's nothing. Oh, I just made a blunder because it's live. It's not like I can go back and edit the film, cut that script. I can do it after I download it and put it somewhere else on the social media, but not currently. So you're finding a human being human, talking fast. At the same time, I'm not even got to be somewhere to about 30 minutes because that's when I know I'll be on punishment zone. You ever been on punishment zone before? Is where you're going to be late to something you're not supposed to be late for, and you made a promise not to be late? I'm about to do that. So since I stated before, I'm going to go ahead and end the show and make sure that you understand to follow the guide. Write it down on a sheet of paper. My natural tendency is to be hungry when problems arise. And then check to see if that's the box that you default to. When a problem comes up, let me see if I'm scared. Check that box. If a problem comes up, do I get angry and look to point at someone else other than myself? Check the box. Or when a problem comes up, all of a sudden my desires in my body to be horny jump to the ceiling. If it does, you need to check all those boxes and says, wait a minute, I'm delaying solving the problem, which means the problem will not be solved. You can't be responsible until you implement a solution and move to the next problem. Hopefully this week you guys will solve at least 100 problems of any interaction. Maybe it's just solving 50, maybe it's solving 10, but hopefully it's more than solving one. Let's not delay anything. Let's not do and learn any of the bad habits that we just saw in Congress as they only did a supplemental 45-day spending bill. Let's solve the problem for our own self, because we have our own spending bills as a business. And let's go out there and let's make ourselves exhausted as we go through the process of generating the revenue we need in order to sustain ourselves and to build a legacy of business owners and employees. Somebody will be graduating in less than a couple months. December is graduation. And if we don't go out and generate the money, we're going to have some kids that will not have a job. Until Wednesday, when we go on more business pro tips, I'm going to take a strategy to show you how you can start from 0 and get to 100. You guys have a blessed day.